30, so I'm going to call the August 1st meeting of the West Des Moines City Council to order and invite you all to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, please sign in.
Five members present.
Okay, Ryan, have there been any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Your Honor.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as distributed? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote.
5 yes.
Okay, item 2, Citizens Forum. Anybody in the audience would like to address the City Council on any item that is not either part of public hearings or new business? That's items 6 and 7. Come up to the podium, give us your name and address for the record, please, and please keep your comments to under 5 minutes, and I'd also ask that you keep it civil and respectful. Go ahead, sir.
Under 5 minutes. Wow.
Yep.
That's more than anybody else gave me.
Well, I know there are a lot of cities that do 3 minutes. I think
2 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
2 minutes. Well, you got 5, so use them wisely.
Okay. My name is Robert Greenway. I am of Menlo, Iowa, 417 7th Street. I'm soon to move to Granger, and I will I am now a Democratic candidate for the Dallas County Supervisor District 1 against Brad Golightly. There's not a campaign.
Okay.
I understand that.
Cannot have campaign in here.
No,
Go ahead.
That's an announcement.
Yep, appreciate it.
Those of you might remember me, 2 or 3 of you have already said that. I was one of the main proponents and promoters of the local option sales tax drive 4 years ago. This was opposed, known fact, again, by the county supervisors, the then and now present county supervisors. I was actually labeled tax and spend by one of them. That's okay. That's probably the least worst thing I've ever been called. So anyway, like I said, there's no campaign, but one of the objectives is a petition drive to go from 3 to 5 county supervisors. It takes a long time to get it done. And the second is a better use of the local option sales tax by the county, which I found out some things I really don't like. But that's beside the point. Those are things I want to make sure. I think I avoided campaigning, correct?
You were kind of dancing around a little bit.
Dancing around?
So,
Okay,
you
I
know,
don't dance very well.
You could just watch it a little bit. No,
Okay.
appreciate
Well, anyway,
what you're.
situation amounts to, I'll be back
Okay.
for different things, but at the same time, I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert, really appreciate it. Okay, anybody else who would like to address the council on any item that's not a part of new business or public hearings? Okay, seeing no one in the chamber, I'm going to go online. Anybody online, please hit *6. Again, *6, not #6 to unmute yourself. Give us your name and address for the record and keep it to 5 minutes. Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, we're going to move on to item 3, Mayor, Council, Manager Report, Other Entities Update. We are going to start on item 3A with an update on the emerald ash borer.
Good evening. Brett Hodney, Public Services Director. I'd like to introduce Paul Taki. He's our urban forester, and Paul just came on board with us a few months ago after the retirement of our first urban forester, John Olds. We thought it would be a good idea to just do an update on the status of where emerald ash borer is in the community. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I mean, we hired our urban forester, John Olds, many years ago to start treating public trees and to also start putting out media information about emerald ash borer. Paul came to us. He at one time was the bureau chief for the state of Iowa, DNR. We got him from the city of Ames. He was a city forester up there, so we're lucky to have him on board. He's got a lot of information and knowledge in this. So with that, I'll let you take it, Paul.
Thank you, Brad. So I'm going to give a brief presentation on what's going on with the EAB in the community, what we expect over the next 5 to 8 years, and then I'll open it up for questions. Okay, first of all, ash trees make up about 12.7% of our city tree population. So that's roughly 849 trees total. So 42% of those trees are considered street trees. So those are trees mostly between the sidewalk and the curb, but those are trees in the city right away. 30% of the trees are in the mowed parts of our city parks. 14% are on city facilities. 9% are in the medians. And then 5% are in the greenways. And the greenways, if they're in the inventory, those are probably trees that are along a trail or they're in a location where we want to monitor them. So if they start to decline, then we can get them removed or we can treat them if we want to treat them. So that's not all the ash trees in the greenway, but those are the ones that are near a location where they might come in conflict with pedestrian traffic or someone if they fell. Private property ash trees, we have no inventory information on how many private property ash trees there are, and that's very common in most communities. They just don't have that information. Just a little bit of history. EAB was found just west of West Des Moines in 2015. So just to orient yourself, this would be 88th Street, Houston Cemetery, Mill Civic Parkway, and then over here is South Grand Prairie Parkway. So the discovery in 2015 probably means that EAB was actually brought in to the area, probably in 2009, 2010 on infested firewood, likely in that borer stage. That's that lower picture. Then the borers hatched out, or the borers became adults. The adults made it and created more emerald ash borers. And what they do is they tunnel underneath this inner bark layer and they make these S-shaped galleries, and they work from the top of the tree down and they work to the bottom of the tree until the tree is dead. So this chart is the typical ash mortality from EAB. It's often called the Eab Death Curve. So the red arrow indicates year one of when EAB was found in well, just outside of West Des Moines. So 2015, 0% mortality at that point. It had just been discovered. 8 years later, the blue arrow gets us to 2022, and we're at 18% ash mortality. We're at the point now where if you are driving around town, you can start to see dead ash trees on private property, and we've removed a couple on city property. And so after 2022, then we get into the part of the death curve where the population of insects is increasing exponentially, and that means ash mortality is also increasing exponentially. So for the first 8 years, we've had 18% mortality. For the next year, in 2023, we expect an additional 18% mortality in ash trees, up until 2029 when 100% of the ash trees that are untreated are dead. So that's kind of what we can expect. So typically, one of the things that when I talked to people this year with ash tree issues, the common thing that they said was the tree looked fine last year. But there's a few things you can look for. You look for this tufting of growth, kind of where you get the stems starting to separate. You see some dead branches up here. There's some flagging there. Oops. So you start to see some signs if you know what to look for, but it's not really that evident. Then you move on to this stage where you have tree defoliation. They're just not leafing out. They're not doing anything. And then this particular photo here, these two dead and dying ash trees, they're just north of Fire Station 22. They're south of KinderCare, kind of south of University. So that's what they looked like 2 months ago. So that's what we're running into. And then you get to the point where the tree's 100% dead and the bark is starting to slough off. And that's the point. Usually these ash trees, after they've been dead 1 to 2 years, they get very brittle, and you'll start to have branches dropping. So that's why it's imperative to get them removed before they reach that point if possible. So as far as what is the city doing, there was a decision made years ago for the city to treat a number of the ash trees in the parks and city right-of-way. So staff treats each ash tree once every 2 years per the label recommendations with mectonite. And we do half of the trees 1 year and half of the trees the next year. So it's roughly 420 trees a year. Labor, equipment, and pesticide costs for that runs us about $20,000 annually. And in comparison, in 2020, when I was in Ames, we bid out roughly 425 ash trees, so roughly the same number. And that bid, the low bid for that was $39,000. So by doing our own treatment, we're saving a considerable sum of money. When we treat, we're injecting the trees, and we put a flag by each tree when we're doing treatment, and we leave it there for at least 24 hours that states that the tree has been chemically treated for EAB. And if a homeowner has questions about that tree in the right-of-way adjacent to their home, they can call us and ask about it. So that way they kind of know what's going on.
So what does this treatment do that they, so you inject the tree and so this insect smells that and they don't?
What happens, good question. What happens is you inject the tree, and then the injection has a pressurized system, and then you're also injecting into what's called the xylem, or think of it as the water conducting pipes for the tree.
Okay,
So it's injecting into that, and then as the tree transpires, as the leaves lose moisture and it sucks up moisture from the ground, the pesticide hitches a ride with the water and then gets distributed throughout the crown of the tree and into the leaves.
I see.
So that the borers, if the adults are chewing on the leaves, they will die. And if it's in the borer stage, as they tunnel around there and feed, it will kill them as well. So, and what's nice about injection is it keeps everything in the tree. So you're not spraying something that can get on other plants, or it lessens the chance of impacting non-target insects.
And so they would inject this whole container inside this tree that's
They
there?
would inject, based on the diameter of the tree.
I see.
So the bigger the tree, the more holes you drill and the more pesticide you put in it.
I see.
So,
Interesting.
in West Des Moines, as you know, we have a nuisance tree ordinance. So the ordinance states that any dead, diseased, or insect-ridden tree that's deemed a nuisance needs to be removed. Typically, the code says within 14 days. So the process is, typically somebody may contact us and say, hey, my neighbor has a dead ash tree, or if we see a tree, if I see a tree, we will contact the homeowner as well. Just because if we see it, we can't unsee it, and if something tragic happens, and somebody comes to the city and goes, did you know about this? Yeah, we knew about it, but we didn't do anything. So I feel like we have to do something. So I confirm the tree is dangerous. The compliance specialist sends out a letter to the homeowner. Then they follow up. The homeowner, basically, because you can't get a tree service within 2 weeks to come out. As long as the homeowner presents a plan of action, they've contacted a tree service and they have a plan, then we'll let them implement that plan and get the tree down as quickly as they can. If the tree's not removed by the property owner, it has to be abated. So then we remove it, and then it goes through the process of going eventually, if the property owner doesn't pay, it goes on their property taxes until they make payment. So we've served about 140 nuisance notices since the 6th of April. So far, we've had 2 abatements. So most of the people are finding a way to get the trees down and to take action to do that. So kind of why does it matter? Why do we want to get these trees down? This is an article that came out of the Ohio Farmer in 2018, and in that article, it gives 3 examples where people were killed by falling branches from ash trees. So in January 2017, a 16-year-old was killed by a falling ash branch, and EAB was first identified in that area in 2007. Then in Oglala County, Michigan, a 68-year-old man was killed when a dead ash tree fell on his car. EAB was found there in 2004 for the first time. And then similarly in Ohio, a 60-year-old man was killed by a branch that fell on his car. So these trees are going to come down. The only question is it going to be controlled or is it going to be uncontrolled? And when it's uncontrolled, you don't know who's going to be walking under that tree at the time. You don't know who's going to be driving by. And one thing that I always say is if a tree branch falls and it just hits the ground, it's just a mess you have to clean up. But if it falls on a person, then you've got a tragedy. And if you had knowledge that there was a problem with that tree and you didn't address it, you may also then have a lawsuit on your hands. So those are the things that we want to avoid, and we want to make sure the community's safe. So just a reminder again, next year we'll be at 36% ash mortality, and we're moving up to 2029 where it'll be 100%. And this curve has, this insect was first found in Detroit in 2002, and EAB has always followed this pattern regardless of where it's been in the country. So I tell people, if you think you're going to have the ash tree that's going to be missed by EAB, you're not going to. So your options are to treat or to remove, and you just have to decide when you want to do that.
Quick question, is treatment effective indefinitely?
Well, indefinitely is a long time, and so we don't know for sure. So far, treatment has been effective if it's done right, if it's done on schedule. Some of the things that can happen with treatment is if you go too deep into the tree, you can be into the heartwood, which doesn't conduct water up the tree, and then you won't move the chemical, so you're not going to have any impact. And if the person doing the application doesn't have their equipment calibrated right and it's not delivering the chemical that it should, it might not be effective. In Ames, I would say they were about 85% effective, but there was where we bid it out, the bid sometimes went to the low bidder. And when I got there in 2018, they had just finished treatments, and we had 1 or 2 streets where we saw the ash dying all up and down that street. And the only thing I can surmise is that either those trees weren't treated or they weren't treated properly. That's why you had so many dying in a row. So, and there are other things that kill ash trees besides EAB. So even if you're treating, if you have a root girdling issue or something else, the tree's not going to make it. That's why it's good to have it inspected before you treat. Yes.
Is the pesticide harmful to other vegetation around the tree?
No, not if you're injecting.
Okay.
So there is an option that people can use with smaller trees where they use something called imidacloprid, and you can spread that around the base of the tree, and you sort of water it into the soil. Well, that could move off target, and there's some research that indicates that imidacloprid might have a negative effect on pollinators. So we really recommend, if you have a small tree, maybe it's just better to start over. But if that tree is bigger than 10 inches in diameter, you definitely need to be injecting. And my preference would just to see people inject trees just to avoid runoff and hitting those non-target insects.
So
And then,
go ahead, Ray.
okay, and then is this insect just for the ash tree, or will this insect attack like a maple tree or another oak tree or something like that?
Yeah, so far it is specific to ash trees.
Okay,
So it hasn't really spread beyond that.
okay.
And if you happen to have a mountain ash, that's really not a true ash. So those will not be affected, but any true ash will be affected.
How will I know if I have an ash tree? I have trees, but I don't know if they're.
Okay, one of the ways you can determine is if you look at the tree and you see, if you're following the main stem or following a branch out, and let's say this knuckle is
Yeah.
part of the branch.
Okay,
And you have a branch coming out this way and that way, opposite of each other, that's called opposite branching. So if you have a large tree in West Des Moines with opposite branches, it's either an ash or a maple, most likely.
okay,
So that's the first indicator that can tell you, if I see branches that are alternate, then that's not going to be an ash tree. So that's one way you can tell.
So,
Paul, how much, oh,
go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say a couple things. How much does it cost to tear it down, a tree that's infected or going to be infected?
Okay, so to remove a tree, to treat usually is going to be about $12 to $15 per diameter inch of tree, and the diameter is measured about 4.5 feet off the ground. So a 10-inch diameter tree will run you about $120 to $150 every 2 years.
To remove, to treat.
To treat.
Oh, to treat, sorry. Yeah.
Treatment's going to depend on a couple things. It's going to depend on the size of the tree, and it's going to depend on whether that tree, if it's large and hanging over buildings, that complicates things because they're going to have to be a little more careful and meticulous as they rope those pieces down. If it's a backyard tree, sometimes access is really a problem. It's easily can be $2,000 to $3,000, but if you have a large, tricky backyard tree with access issues, it could be $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. So it can be quite expensive.
Oh, so if you have a large ash tree in West Des Moines, it's virtually impossible to get rid of this tree for under $1,000. That's what I'm hearing, because,
I would say that's a pretty good bet. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Is there funding available for folks that maybe can't afford but have one of
There,
these?
there really is no state or federal funding for ash tree removals. Now, West Des Moines is fortunate. If someone is really in a financially tough situation, there's an outfit, a volunteer group called Valley Disaster Relief, and they have taken down trees on 9 properties in West Des Moines, probably about 20 trees. And they do that either at no cost or for a small donation from a homeowner. So typically, if I'm talking with a homeowner and they really are telling me that they don't know how they can afford it, I refer them to Valley Disaster Relief, and they will decide if they can do the tree. If it's a really tricky, large tree hanging over a house, that's probably more than they can handle with volunteers. But if it's a front yard tree with pretty good access, they will typically do those. So that's a resource that people can use if they really can't afford it. And they can always contact them, and then they'll come out and make a decision about whether or not they can help or not.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Also, what we're looking at this slide, and I'd like to move on if we can, but typical ash mortality from EAB, that slide says typical. That's not, and you said a lot follow that, but we've been treating the trees for a while. So I'm wondering if we're following that same pattern? Yeah,
good question. I would say we're following that pattern on private property for trees that are untreated.
Okay.
For the trees that are in West Des Moines, so far, I've only been here just almost 4 months, but this summer we had about 2 or 3 ash removals in parks or in right-of-ways. So we're way under that here in terms of mortality. So the treatments are effective, at least for the time being, at keeping those trees from dying.
I was going to say, because, Kevin and I were on the council when we made this decision, and it was a difficult decision to make, but it was a bold one that we did. We weren't sure at that time if the treatment was going to work, but we had a lot of trees, and we decided to go forward and do that, and I'm glad that ended up being a wise decision, I guess.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people at the time, too, they were talking, even if they go cut all the trees down, it was going to be impossible to find somebody to come do that, and, supply and demand issues.
Yep.
Price was going to go through the roof all across the country for people to come cut those trees down. And so, at that time, we made the decision to treat them, and I'm glad to see that there's
Yeah, I would
been a
definitely
significant
say
difference, I
that
guess.
it's paying off. And, one of the things that we're seeing is, I mentioned it earlier, but because of the number of dead ash trees throughout central Iowa, if you have a tree situation and you call a tree service, it's probably going to be 3 to 4
Sure.
weeks at least before they can get you on their
And
schedule.
that price is going to be much higher than it otherwise would have been if we didn't have such a,
Yeah,
Demand.
pandemic for trees.
so.
All right, go ahead if you can.
All right, yeah, sure. A lot of negative news, so I wanted to close with something a little more positive. We do have a couple of replanting programs, the Shade Crusade program, which is supported by Microsoft. People can order a tree for $25 to plant on their property. They order through Parks and Rec. and then Public Services works with Microsoft staff to deliver those trees. I talked to a lady in Valley Junction, and she had some ash trees that were removed, and she was going to use this program to get some replacements. And then we're continuing to seek grant funding and other funding to do plantings in city parks and in the city right away where it's appropriate, so we can continue to diversify our tree canopy and replace these trees that have been lost. You've asked a lot of questions along the way, but are there any other questions?
Any other question for Paul before we move on? Well, welcome aboard. We haven't had a chance to meet you, and this is the
thank
first
you.
time. Appreciate everything you're doing.
No worries, it's great to be
Very
here.
knowledgeable and a great hire, so.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Have a good one.
I learned a lot tonight.
Absolutely. Me too.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, and we're going to go in reverse order since we always pick on Councilman Lotz first. We're going to go with Deputy City Manager Jamie Letzring for your report. Any report? Okay.
Jamie, do you want to report on the meeting you attended the other day at Robbins Hospital?
No, you did. No, you were representing City of Western Wayne.
Renee was kind enough to host us Renee was kind enough to host us at Broadlands for a meeting on a conversation around a sobering center for use in Public County. Much to be decided yet, but it was a very interesting concept. The premise or the reason that municipalities might be interested is that someone who's in need of a sobering center is perhaps a drain on our police and fire EMS resources. A sobering center would, in effect, be a rapid entry program for someone who is non-combative but able to utilize that space for a few hours and then, up to 24 hours, but also puts our officers, back at their normal duties at a faster pace. So more meetings to come.
I just want to say I was really happy that Jamie was there, and there were probably 30 to 40 people there. Lots of people from city councils, various folks that have an interest in this, and so it really does bode well for municipalities and whatnot. Jamie was representing Tom Adden, asked some really good questions. So a small committee is going to get together to explore the possibility of offering that as a way to prevent people from going to jail, and we know what that all does for folks, but maybe a place to just talk, to get better for 5 or 6 hours. It's a really good service to the community, so excited about looking at that for the community.
Okay, moving on. Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. Did want to thank Paul. Again, I've been in conversations with Paul and Jeff Sherman in operations because I think a lot of folks in West Des Moines are surprised when we have an urban forester. And what a fantastic position that we have available in the city, because when we have a middle-aged community or an older community, however old we want to consider ourselves, that just means our canopy is going to be getting older and taller, and these kind of things are going to come up more and more. So it's excellent to know that Paul is an excellent resource. I know I talked with John just a couple weeks into my term in office. I was like, oh, we have an urban forester? Well, that's fantastic. Let's find out more about that, because a lot of people had, not a lot of people, but a couple people had a question about a tree. I was like, I don't know anything about trees. I'm not a urban forester. And it was great that we had one. So wanted to thank Paul again for that. Couple more things at F&A. 2 weeks ago, we had a robust discussion on TIFs, and Councilman Lotz and I had a lot of fun. Wanted to thank the entire team for, one, telling us more about kind of some TIF background, how many TIFs we have, and to constantly re-engage us in the process of TIF education, because, Jamie, you had mentioned even after dealing with TIFs for 15 years, there's always these little pockets of the nuances that you just don't pick up as much. So thank you for sharing that. And the F&A committee is going to be participating in some more TIF research in a week or so in a coming meeting. So thank you to Tim and others who are going to be, again, just bringing the F&A committee together for more focus on TIF, so we can make sure we understand all the nuances as best we can. So thank you for that. Quick note to residents. A resident reached out to me about a week ago regarding the conduit network, and I think she was kind of surprised at at basically the 4-inch hole that was being drilled in her driveway in the right-of-way. And I know this happened in hundreds of driveways across the city of West Des Moines, but when it comes to, and Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to pipes that carry water into a house in newer parts of the city, when the conduit network comes into your neighborhood, they are drilling a 4-inch diameter hole in your driveway. Although not on your property, it's in your right-of-way. And now they're filling it up with some excellent concrete that's got a great name for it, that's quick drying and delightful in all of the important construction ways. But the resident who reached out to me was not aware that they were drilling a hole in the driveway. And I just wanted to kind of remind residents, because I know all of Ward 2 is watching right now. So given that, Ward 2 folks, just so you know, the conduit network, when it comes to, they're going to drill a 4-inch hole in your driveway, but they will fill it up, and it's for, again, this conduit network, which is going to connect every part of the city to this Google Fiber and other internet providers. So that's my reminder, and my report is done, Your Honor.
Awesome. Great report. Really appreciate it. Councilman McKinney.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd echo the appreciation for the presentation today. You kind of hear about these things, you don't hear about them for a while, so it's good to know maybe some of the history that sounds like you and Councilman Trevelyan had to address several years ago. And just want to echo the shout out to Sally and her team relative to the work with Microsoft and being able to get that grant money here to help support the Shade Crusade, I think it was a term, and that was a big deal. A great partner in the community in a lot of different ways. So let's see, a couple things. I did a little bit of walking around Valley Junction about 2 weeks ago, looking at the transition zones, trying to better understand excuse me, what is contemplated, what is currently permitted, what is not permitted, and how that all fits into the greater picture. Of course, I continue to believe that if we're going to be talking about, changing zoning and we're going to do it in a comprehensive way, it ought to be done in a comprehensive way. But I appreciate the opportunity to learn a little bit about kind of this, the project down there. And then today we had development and planning this morning, and really just, it was a quick meeting. We were done by 8 o'clock. Typically that'll go till 9. And just talking about accessory structures and accessory items as it relates to kind of outdoor recreational facilities, talking about the height of fencing, talking about the height of light poles, and how does that apply to light poles at the recplex versus light poles elsewhere. And so anyway, we'll have an ordinance come forward, and that's my report.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Hardman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a variety of things. I first of all want to congratulate Sally for the article that was on the front page of the Business Record. It was really nice to see our very own West Des Moines director from the Parks and Rec getting so much publicity for the city of West Des Moines and the work that we do for quality of life. So I was very, very excited, and everybody that came in my office, I had it front and center, and they knew I was Go West Des Moines. Also want to thank Meredith and Nate. I attended the last meeting of the Historic Valley Junction Steering Committee that was taking place and has been going on for, feels like, almost, I think about a year or so. But they had their last meeting, and it was an opportunity, while not everybody got what they wanted, it was an opportunity to reflect upon progress. And progress is incremental, folks. It never is always you get what you want and boom. It's incremental. So there are a lot of things that came from all the collective work of the group. And there was a lot of push and pull. But I think at the end of that meeting, people felt that they had an opportunity to be listened to. And they had an opportunity to have their voices heard. And for the first time in a long time, I saw a little bit of, quite a bit of camaraderie as the group dismissed. So I just want to thank the co-chairs of that, Nate and Meredith, for their leadership and all of the things that occurred to get us to this point. So it was quite a sight to be there. I also want to acknowledge Audrey Kennis, who, as we know, is our D&I director here at City of West Des Moines. She is doing something good again, always, and she has convened a D&I consortium of D&I professionals that she is going to convene to meet once a month to talk about all things D&I, and those that may not know what D&I is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so what that does for the City of West Des Moines is that she gets to hear about best practices, and we get to hear about best practices, and we all find ways to collaborate because we are all better together. And so I really appreciate that she's taking the lead on getting that. She's invited me to the party, and so I'm excited to be on those calls. And we had one several weeks ago, and I thought it was very robust. So I wanted to say that. I also want to say there's been some phenomenal publicity for the new fire truck. And so as people see it, they said, that's a huge truck. And I said, yes, it is. And on the 4th of July parade day, I got to be on the top of it. Had a little accident coming down from it, but nevertheless, I got to see the view from the top of the fire truck. And but it's really nice to see it parked out front sometimes. And I think people are really impressed with the equipment that we have here in West Des Moines that is going to really help take care of our citizens here when they are in their most need. And then finally, I want to share some congratulatory remarks about the chamber. Last week, our chamber, West Des Moines Chamber, headed up by Catherine Harrington, went to Indianapolis to the National Association of Chamber Executives. And I was never more proud. She sent me a text that morning saying, pray for me, pray for us. We're going into our interview. They were actually a finalist for Chamber of the Year on a national level. Let me say that again, a finalist for a chamber at the national level. And here she is being interviewed. She did not take home the trophy, but this is her first time at it. And I'm telling you, she is on fire because she learned so many neat ideas that I don't know where she's going to take this, but she'll bring them to West Des Moines. But we are represented by the best of the best here in West Des Moines. And the Chamber is a great partnership for the work that we do. They're an extension of us, quite frankly. They are an extension. And if you get a moment to thank Catherine, congratulate her, because she really represented West Des Moines well in this competition to be the best chamber in the nation. And she'll get it, but being a finalist is where you start. Trying to see what else, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay, there's just a lot to share. I also want to just give a shout out to my colleague, Councilman Lutz. I have been traveling a little bit, and we're a team here. And he has sat in on a couple of meetings at very short notice and has not made me feel guilty about it. So I just want to publicly thank Councilman Lutz for his effort of teamwork and collaboration and being there when needed. So thank you so much. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. Councilman Trevilian.
Nothing this time.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Lotz.
Nothing to report, Your Honor.
Thank you. The only thing that I would add is I would just quickly echo some of the comments that have been made. The Valley Junction Steering Committee, I want to thank, not only Nate and Meredith, but also thank our staff. Our staff put in, Clyde and his department put in hours and hours and hours into this and did tons of homework for each one of the meetings and posting of meetings online and all kinds of stuff. It just a lot of work went into this. And then also our council people, Councilwoman Hardman and Councilman Trevilian, a lot of meetings. These meetings went hours and hours and hours. So just really appreciate everybody's hard work, commitment, and dedication to coming up with something that we could all be proud of. And like Councilwoman Hardman said, I'm really pretty proud of what's come out of that. Not everybody has gotten their way. It has been a push and pull. And this is exactly what we wanted. This robust discussion and coming to a conclusion that everybody feels that they can live with. You know, is everyone going to be 100% happy? No, but I think everybody won some, everybody lost some, and we have a really good guiding, I guess, set of documents coming out of there. So really appreciate that. And there was something else I was going to mention, but I will just end it with that, and we will move on to item 4, consent agenda. Are there any items that any council person would like to have pulled and voted on separately?
Yes, Mayor, item 4C9.
Okay, 4C9, any other items? Okay,
Move for the remainder.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay, item 4C9, Councilman McKinney, Come and Go LC, doing business as Come and Go, number 1074, 330 Jordan Creek Parkway, Class LE liquor license with carryout beer, carryout wine, and Sunday sales.
So move.
Second.
Okay? Councilman McKinney?
I'll just abstain. This
Okay.
is a client that I work with regularly.
Gotcha. Okay, so moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
4 yes, 1 abstention due to potential conflict of interest.
Okay, item 5, old business. We've got item 5A, Ashworth, 88 southeast corner of Ashworth Road and 88th Street, establish the Ashworth 88th Planned Unit Development Ordinance, regulating development of senior apartments and future commercial and office, Curly Top LLC, Dave and Paula Sadler, MJM Real Estate Development LLC, and 843 88th Street LLC. We've got an ordinance for approval of the second reading, waiver of the third reading, and adoption of final form. There are no outstanding issues. The changes to the PUD are consistent with the July 18th memo that was on the dais then, and P&Z voted on this unanimously, as did council at the last meeting the July 18th meeting with Renee and Kevin absent.
Move consideration of the second reading.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, please vote.
Five yes, an ordinance amending the official zoning map in the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title IX zoning, Chapter 9, Plan Unit Development District pertaining to PUD district regulations and guidelines.
Move approval of the second reading.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
Move waiver of the third reading and adopt in final form.
Second, and I have a quick comment, too.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. After a gentleman called in to our last meeting, I had the opportunity to go to his house and visit with him. We had a very good discussion, and I also spoke with most of the folks in the neighborhood who are immediately adjacent to this, and it was good to have some conversation, and for the most part, I think we're in pretty good shape going forward, so I continue to be in support, obviously, based on my votes earlier, but I continue with that support.
Yeah, that is great. Thank you for doing that. That's above and beyond. Really appreciate you going out there to see it firsthand and have a discussion with him, so. Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay, item 5B, termination of Westtown 3 urban renewal area, city initiated. There are no outstanding issues and no change from the previous reading. And this was also approved at the July 18th meeting unanimously with Councilwoman Hardman and Councilman Trevilian absent.
Move consideration of the second reading.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, as we discussed, this was a TIF that was on the books that shouldn't be, and we're just simply terminating it, so. Okay, please vote.
Five yes, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 1327, providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the Westtown 3 urban renewal area in the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, pursuant to section 40319 of the Code of Iowa.
For approval of the second reading.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
Move to waive third reading, adopt in final form.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay, item 6A, public hearings. This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider amendment to City Code Title 9 zoning, Chapter 6 Commercial Office and Industrial District, and Chapter 15 Off-Street Parking and Loading, modify regulations pertaining to residential care to allow in the Regional Commercial Zoning District initiated by Greater Des Moines Supportive Housing. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice is published?
July 15th, 2022, in the Des Moines Register.
Have we received any written comments to this hearing?
The Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 4 yes, 3 were absent, adopted a resolution recommending approval of the ordinance amendment, and there were also several correspondence letters received, which are on the dais in front of you this evening.
Yep, we do have a memo on the dais here, which are several letters of support on behalf of Greater Des Moines Supportive Housing. Got a number of the properties nearby, Hamilton's, Knapp Properties, Goodwill Industries. We got Polk County Supervisor Angela Conley would like to address the council on item 6A. Please hit *6 to unmute yourself and give us your name and address for the record. Okay, hearing no one, I will declare the public hearing closed. We've got an ordinance for approval, the first reading. There are no outstanding issues, and this came through Development and Planning and was approved unanimously on June 20th and also approved unanimously by P&Z on July 25th. Can I get a motion to approve or to consider the first reading?
Move consideration of the first reading.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Five yes, an ordinance amending the City Code of the City of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019, Title 9 zoning, Chapter 6 Commercial Office and Industrial District, and Chapter 15 Off-Street Parking and Loading pertaining to SIC 836 Residential Care in the Regional Commercial District.
Move approval of the first reading.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay, item 6B, this is the time and the place for a public hearing to consider 76th Street, Ashworth Road, Aspen Drive, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date notice is published?
July 15th, 2022, in the Des Moines Register.
And have we received any written comments to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody from the audience would like to address the council item 6B, please come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. Anybody online, please hit *6 and do the same. Okay, just giving a second for anybody online that might be struggling to find how to unmute yourself. Okay, hearing and seeing no one, I will declare the public hearing closed, and we've got 2 resolutions and a motion which we can take at the same time, and there are no outstanding issues. Can I get a motion to approve? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, one comment about this, and I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago as well. Tonight I'm going to be voting no on this particular item. The residents in the neighborhood immediately to the south, they would prefer that 76th Street not go through until all of the development is done, including on the west side of the future 76th Street. So I will just be voting with those residents in mind this very evening, just so everybody can be aware.
Thank you, Councilman, appreciate it. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Four yes, 1 no.
Okay, item 6C. This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Raccoon River Stormwater Pump Station Controls Replacement initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice is published?
July 15th, 2022, in the Des Moines Register.
And have we received any written comments to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody from the audience or online that would like to address the council, please come up to the podium, give us your name and address. If you're online, hit *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, once again, seeing no motion and hearing nothing, I will declare the public hearing closed. We've again got 2 resolutions in motion. We can take at the same time, and there's no outstanding issues. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, please vote.
Take care. Take care.
5 yes.
Take care. Okay, Item 6D, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Prairie View Drive and Ashworth Road intersection improvements initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice is published?
July 15th, 2022, in the Des Moines Register.
Okay, and have we received any written comments to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody from the audience who would like to address the council on this item, please come to the podium, give us your name and address. If you're online, please hit *6 to unmute. Okay, hearing and seeing no one, I will declare this hearing closed. We have got two resolutions and a motion again. We can take them at the same time, and there are no outstanding issues. And I would just note that unfortunately, Councilman Trevelyan had to step away due to a visitation funeral he has to attend. So if the vote is different, that is why. Can I get a motion to approve the resolutions in the motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I just had one question, and Brian, maybe you could join me up here for a second. So I had asked Brian Hemeseth to share a couple of the plans for this particular Prairie View / Ashworth interchange, and I had been looking through them. And Brian, I apologize. Normally I would email you ahead of time, but I didn't get a chance to look at them very clearly today. So it looks like there's going to be quite a bit of acquisition on the south side of Ashworth, on the west side of Prairie View, and it looks like we got 3 or 4 residents there. So I guess the questions are just have they been informed? Have they been all right? Are they all feeling groovy with this process that's about to begin?
Yep, Brian Hemeseth, city engineer. Yeah, we've actually acquired all the right-of-way that we need for that area, and they've been actually really good to work with.
Okay. That's all I needed to know. And I assumed that that the discussions had gone well, or else we would have heard something else. But I just wanted to thank you for that, and that's all. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
And it's relatively painless in that we've already got enough right-of-way for one of the turn lanes, right? Or
Right, actually on the east leg of the intersection, the width is already there, so we're actually only widening on the east side.
Okay.
Or the west side, I'm sorry.
Okay,
And it
perfect.
only affects those 3 residents on the south side there, on the
That's right.
southwest side. All right. Thank you very much, Brian.
Nobody loves construction. I'm sure we'll hear about it when it's going on, but you know what? When it's done, it's amazing.
And that left-hand turn lane is going to be very, very good for a lot of
absolutely.
reasons.
Okay. With no further discussion, please vote.
Four yes.
Ryan, we don't need to take attendance again, do we?
No.
Okay. All right. All right, item 6E, this is time and place for a public hearing to consider South Service Area Segment 8-2 sewer initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice is published?
July 15th, 2022, in the Des Moines Register.
And have we received any written comments to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody from the audience who would like to address the council on item 6E, please come to the podium, give us your name and address. And anybody online, please hit *6 to unmute and give us your name and address. Okay, again, seeing and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and we've again got 2 resolutions in motion, which we can take at the same time.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this one? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, our last one here, item 6F. This is the time and the place for a public hearing to consider Valgate District signage initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice is published?
July 15th, 2022, in the Des Moines Register.
And have you received any written comment to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody from the audience who would like to address the council on item 6F, please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and anybody online, hit *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, again, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and again, we've got 2 resolutions and a motion that we could take at the same time, and there are no outstanding issues.
Move approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just one quick question.
Okay.
Looking through the Pinky, do we know when we'll get a design? Maybe I missed it, and what it might look like, or is there just a potential design? Is there any sort of like a conceptual drawing of what this might look like? That's my question.
As Brian comes up here, I'll just say that about, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, before development and planning, we had some initial designs that were presented by the architect. But Brian?
Yeah, Brian Hemeseth, city engineer. We went through a vetting process. We looked them over. We actually took them to development and planning, and we do have what they will look like. I don't have them with me, but that's something that we can send out to all the council members
Sure.
tomorrow morning
All right.
or tonight if I get to it.
It's all right.
All right.
I recall us talking about this issue a couple months ago. That must have been it, but my memory is a little faulty on what
It's really
what
nice.
they actually looked like
Yeah,
too. So.
I'm not big into the art and all that, but I really like it.
All right.
So it looks good.
Awesome.
If that means anything.
All right.
Means the world.
It did look really good.
Brian's
All right.
seal of approval. All right. Any other discussion before we vote on this?
Are we ready for a vote, you're saying?
Yeah, we should be. Any
No
other
more discussion from me.
Okay. No more discussion, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, moving on to item 7, new business, item 7A, Banks Landing, Plat 1, northwest corner of South 88th Street and Boonville Road, subdivide the property in 27 lots for single-family development, 1 public street lot, 1 outlot for stormwater management, and 1 outlot for future development. Black Oak Real Estate Properties LLC. We've got a resolution for reapproval of the preliminary plat. Construction wasn't completed within the required time period, and the entitlement was never extended. So that's why we are reapproving the preliminary plat for tonight. There are no outstanding issues, and the applicant is in agreement with all staff recommendations. And this came through Development Planning and P&Z unanimously.
Motion to approve?
Okay? Is there a
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, item 7B, Cascades Lot 2, southwest corner of Cascade Avenue and South 81st Street. Approve a site plan to allow construction of an apartment building, Doug Modernock Civil Design Advantage. We've got a resolution to approve the site plan. There are no outstanding issues in the applicant's agreement with all staff recommendations. And once again, this came through both Development and Planning and P&Z unanimously.
Move approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, item 7C, Farmer State Bank, southeast corner University Avenue and 98th Street. Approve full site plan to allow the construction of a 33,000 square foot bank building, Farmer State Bank. We have a resolution for approval of the full site plan. There are no outstanding issues. The applicant's agreement with all staff recommendations. And again, P&Z voted unanimously at their July 25th meeting for this item.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Councilman Loetz and I were fortunate enough to be out there for a groundbreaking a couple months ago, I guess.
It was cold that
It was
day.
brisk, as I recall, yeah. And it's just great to see, I guess, to see such a beautiful building coming into West Des Moines. It's great to see our city growing, that's all.
No, it's not only great building, like all the buildings going up here, but, you know, this is a business who's going to provide financing to other businesses, other development activities, and it's another, you know, feather in our cap for development in the city and attracting, you know, new employers into town, so. it's a really
Absolutely.
great win.
And they chose to come here too, so I think
Chose
that's,
us, yeah.
that's
Always
fantastic.
appreciate their investment, no doubt.
Always.
Okay, thank you for the comments. Please vote. Essen?
Renee.
Oh, Renee.
Four yes.
Okay, item 8, receive, file, and/or refer. We've got no items. Item 9, other matters. Are there any other matters any councilperson would like to bring up at this point?
Mr. Mayor, do you want to
Yes.
speak about, just a quick shout out for Battle of the Burbs?
You know what? Absolutely. That's one of the things I meant to mention. Thank you. But first, the other thing I want to mention is what Renee touched on, and that is our West Des Moines Chamber of Commerce. I mean, that is absolutely phenomenal. I think this is the first time, and we've had a lot of incredible presidents and CEOs and great staff of the chamber. This is the first time that I think we have been up for a national award like this and made the finals. And I would just echo what Renee said. We have got such an incredible chamber and such a great partnership. And Catherine is just so pumped up and enthusiastic about what she's doing, as are her employees. And boy, we just couldn't be any luckier than we are to be able to work with them. So I congratulate them on making the top three. And, you know, I know they'll be back next year to win the whole thing. So, and then Battle of the Burbs. We need all the West Des Moines residents, staff, anybody that wants to get out there to do the 5K fun run walk. I'm probably going to walk because I'm a wimp. And I haven't been working out that much, but I will be there. A number of us will be there. We won the belt last year in 2021. And but we've got Clive breathing down our neck. So, you know, we need all the residents to get out there and exercise and support us, and let's bring home that belt again.
Yeah, last year, I think Councilman McKinney and I stood on the stage and took home the trophy. I think I was the last one to cross the finish line, but I was there. I cannot be there this time because I'll be in Savannah, Georgia, but I'll be cheering you guys on, so.
You'll be there in spirit,
I
Renee.
will be there in spirit with you, but I will not be there this year, but I hope to see the trophy.
Well, I hope we can hold up that belt and bring it back home again. So, anybody else have anything under other matters? Okay, if not, we don't have any workshops and there's no executive session. We are adjourned.
Great deal, 6:30.
Yeah, not too bad.
Not bad.
I thought we'd get done sooner. I thought we'd get